existing Kaido holders who are whales already would be pushing the projects that they invest in to like do around on you
Yes.
because they're cool.
And that becomes a kind of a flywheel as well, because essentially by decentralizing the benefits and the fees, we create more stakeholders for each of the launchpad projects. Then that becomes a very, very interesting dynamic. Basically acquired 1 million Kaito tokens in the open market and then put them onto a self-imposed lock. And then within that lock, I put 2 milestones publicly. One is a 50 million target, and then the other one is a 100 million target. And so clearly we're thinking it is possible to, and it's achievable for the network to essentially get 100 million. Otherwise, I'm just burning my tokens effectively. Because at the end of the day, we already index majority of the platforms. Like we already index YouTube, we already index Telegram, we already index Discord, all this kind of stuff. But the next one we're going to be launching is going to be TikTok. So we're going to have like TikTok leaderboard, stuff like that.
All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Bitcast. I'm your host, Jason Kam, aka Maple Leaf Cap. Today is April 23rd, 2025, 5 p.m. Hong Kong time. Bitcast is being live streamed to BitClub members. Questions are from my own and the members. Today, I'm speaking with Yuhu, the founder of Kaido. Yuhu, welcome.
Good to be here.
Yeah. You publicly disclosed that you're now run rating at 33 million ARR annualized. Can you just break that down for us, like where it's coming from? Because that was like a massive increase versus when I talked to you last year.
Yeah, so I've obviously like the whole Kaito journey has been a bit of a kind of a massive growth, right? So at the very beginning of 2024, which is just over roughly 5 quarters ago, so 15 months ago, we were generating roughly 100K of revenue. And then since then, there's been significant adoption on various different parts of the businesses. And so the number that we gave specifically was annualizing the Q1 revenue, and the two kind of main components to it. One is what we call information as a service, which is the traditional business that we've been running over the past, basically, started monetizing in early part of 2024. That's our API business and our subscription kind of a business. And then that's making up roughly, I would say, somewhere between like 30 to 50% of the revenue that we disclosed. And then the other business is basically the new business that we launched in December, and that's kind of the Yap leaderboard slash what we call information as a platform business. Obviously, Yap leaderboard will be in the first product out there in the market, but subsequently we're going to be launching a lot of the newer products, and that's the other, the basically the remaining part. And yeah, so that's kind of the whole makeup of the 33.
Sorry, and the traditional info as a service business, what's the breakdown of API versus subscription?
Yeah, so I mean, we're not breaking that down, but it's both are basically both are growing still, and both are very, very resilient, and cutting through actually. I think one of the underappreciated aspects of that business is it brings us all the business relationships that we currently have. One of the things that people were kind of surprised about when we first launched the Yaps campaign is people were instantly thinking that this is another social fi farm and it doesn't have any fundamental, but actually all the stuff that led to the Yap leaderboard was because of the business relationship that we had over the years, and clients are basically asking us to have new ways beyond just like doing analytics, asking us for new ways to actually to crystallize growth and all that kind of stuff. So the kind of the pro side and the API side both are still growing very fast, and on the API side we're powering a lot of the kind of AI agents, LLM applications, but nowadays we're doing a ton of large scale enterprise integrations in terms of for example, we I think maybe like a month ago, Falcon X announced that their new flagship kind of a product is integrating with all the Kaito data. So in terms of all the search capabilities, mindshare, sentiment, a lot of the social graph stuff.
Mm,
And increasingly, we're doing a lot more of these large-scale enterprise integrations using all the data that we have.
mm. And is it and the breakdown there? How much is investment funds using you versus kind of businesses generally?
Yeah. At this point, it's more businesses than investment firms.
Yeah.
I think, I think at the end of the day, that's the state of the market right now.
Mm,
And um, it's just that a bigger portion of the crypto market is always going to be project teams, and project teams have more dollars to spend,
yeah,
it's
that's
bigger
for sure.
treasury,
We're
and
fucking poor.
a lot of the funds actually, it's very interesting dynamics in a way that even some of the whales are able to deploy more money and dollar than a lot of the liquid funds in the space. This is a yeah, very different, very different market structure and dynamics there. But
Mm,
obviously at the same time, the benefit of working with all the projects uh, is the business is very, very resilient.
mm,
As long as the project's operating, as long as people are on the team, then basically people need the tools to be doing their jobs. And market going up, going down doesn't really have an impact. The same goes to the API business as well.
mm.
It's once people are integrating with that, it's very, very resilient. But also at
Yeah.
the same time, a lot of the Yap leadable clients that we have essentially um, got materialized because they've been kind of using the information service platform that
Yeah.
we built.
Yeah. And I guess the churn there is low, but it kind of is cyclical only in a way that the market gives the funds and the companies more or less money. Okay.
Yeah, and to be honest, like for so just in terms of the churn part, the high churn part is always the individual traders market, and I think will be the same for a lot of the sort of a subscription based services in the space. The individual traders are very, very volatile, but it's making up a very little proportion of our revenue, even just on the pro side.
Mm,
And 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 in the 33 million number, because the annualized run rate number, so it already factored in all the market downturn in March already.
yeah. And of the other part, which is the info as a platform, how do you make your, I'm guessing like $20 million plus annualized there?
Yeah, it's so we obviously have a different ways of making money there, and we're also kind of in the process of expanding new revenue streams. But currently, it's we launched Yappa leaderboards with various different projects, and as part of the service, we'd essentially run all the data indexing, analytics, and co-marketing with every single project, and then we charge a fee for that
Mm,
for the service. We so one of the very big focuses for us in Q2 is basically having two new revenue streams, actually three more revenue streams coming out of the information. Actually, two new revenue streams coming out of the information as a service.
yeah.
Information as a platform business, and then one more revenue stream coming out of the what we call the third leg, which is information as an asset. So
Hmm.
maybe I'll just cover the kind of the two additional revenue streams. So
Yeah.
one is going to be
Sorry,
Kaito Earn.
before we go there, I'll dive deeply into them just in just a
Oh
bit.
yeah,
But
sure.
so right, like if they're a pre-TG, they come to you, it's like I want to pay my KOLs and have them shill me, and
Yep.
please help me devise a campaign and pick out the best KOLs who can shill me,
Yep.
and I'll and is that and you pay me like I'll pay you $1 million for you to like devise a campaign. Is that roughly the right way to think about it?
No, so it doesn't currently work that way. So the way that
Mm,
we basically charge is we charge a flat fee for data indexing, analytics, and all that kind of stuff. And each of the project would essentially set aside their own reward pool. We don't take any dollar from the reward pool,
mm,
and every single dollar of the reward pool basically goes straight to the users. But as a service provider, we'd essentially run the data indexing and algorithm, and the obviously the distribution of all the rewards.
Yeah.
And then so we charge kind of a six figure for that kind of a data indexing for 1 year of service. And then so upon renewal, people can essentially decide whether they want to renew the service or not. And the basically two big camps of projects that are considering this. One is post TGE. If you are a very mature kind of a protocol, then you can, so, projects such as Polkadot, back in the day, spent huge amount of dollar in terms of incentivizing KOLs, and now using Yappa leaderboards is essentially organically incentivize content creators and influencers in the space. The ultimate proposition there is, in the past, because crypto doesn't, there's no digital ads in the space, because you can't run any ads on Twitter, then every single campaign and the main distribution dollar basically goes to a handful of KOLs in the space, which is very ineffective. And majority of the times you basically set aside a huge, either KOL round or reward for a very, very handful of people, and hoping, and also at the same time you pay people upfront, hoping that they deliver. It is actually one of the most primitive and non-transparent, opaque distribution methods in the world. So the kind of alternative solution that we came up with was that we essentially incentivize people to set up a public bounty, so that it becomes freely accessible for everyone to essentially participate, which generally speaking, generate much better excitement across crypto Twitter, but at the same time, you only reward people based on their actual performance. So
cool.
people need to put up the work and actually generate kind of a high value, high impact outcome to be able to qualify for being paid. And so essentially everything is essentially being rewarded after the impact is done. So that's kind of a alternative structure. And if you think about kind of a pre-TG and post-TG, you essentially always have some sort of marketing dollar that you need to spend for every single healthy company in the space and outside of the space as well. And people, for example, the Jupiter will be running their own content creator campaign, stuff like this. Every single community every single big protocol would essentially run something similar. Historically, it's all manual. You basically go through thousands of different tweets. Some of the protocols use Twitter API, which is costing them close to $1 million a year in terms of just the data indexing. And then you basically manually go through all of this, and then pay your community member with kind of some sort of activation. It's very manual, but at the same time it's, or alternatively, for example, be like Polkadot back in the day, you pay 37 million that was disclosed in 6 months working with influencers and KOLs, and without very explicit metrics to essentially evaluate performance and effectiveness. So we're kind of changing this structure. So with a fraction of the money, you can now basically have alternative way of incentivizing the entire community and crypto Twitter to be, talking about something that's either educational or insightful, or talking about stuff that's relevant and very important for your narrative and some of the specific campaigns that you're doing. And then you can always combine this together with whatever campaigns that you're doing. Like, for example, the way the Mentor is doing this is Mentor's launching a ton of new products. And every single product that essentially incentivizes people to be educating the whole market about this new product. Either they're kind of the new index fund, the banking side of things and stuff like that. And it's using a fraction of the money to essentially mobilize the entire.
And the flexibility there is they can pay through tokens as well as US dollars. That's cool.
Yeah, and then go ahead.
And how many logos are there with this $20 million kind of run rate? I'm guessing it's actually growing, because it doesn't just go away after TGE. Like they might want to pay you less after TGE, but it's a SaaS annualized service.
Yeah,
So,
it's an annualized service, and the so the way I think about it is two kinds of different markets. One is the pre-TG market, and the other one is the post-TG market. The post-TG market is effectively you're working with more mature protocols that have sustained for years of development, right? So they're not
yep.
gonna go away, and then they have also substantial kind of a treasury, thinking about sustainable development, all that kind of stuff, and then they are most likely to be renewal, long-term sustainable kind of multi-year kind of contract that we think about. And then the pre-TG market is a bit of both. So you have a lot of the primary focus for most of the pre-TG market, and the nature of the market is people would essentially spend significant marketing dollar going through the pre-TG process, because that's when you build up awareness and build up the brand throughout the process. And post TG, some of the projects will be able to kind of continue to thrive, and some of the project will not be able to make it over the long term.
Yep.
But essentially, that part of the market, we convert some of the projects to be long-term customers, and some of the other project will eventually maybe discontinue. But that, as long as the asset issuance side will always continue, then we'll always have a stream of more projects essentially launching through that mechanism as well.
Yep. And how many logos do you have that contribute to that 20
Currently, I
million
think
annualized?
it's roughly somewhere between 40 to 50.
40 to 50. Oh wow. Okay, so they pay you a lot of money.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Makes a lot of sense. So that's 20 million annualized, just about. Tell us about the two new products that excites you, and what kind of revenue do you think they'll help you drive? Maybe those two questions.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So the way I think about the stuff that we're disrupting is, if you think about the Yappa leaderboard market, that's kind of a democratized way to essentially launch attention. And the two other things that we are very excited about, one is a democratized way to essentially help with capital formation. And that's effectively a capital launchpad. And I also think that that's probably where the industry is going, because I think a few major trends that are happening right now is, I think VC funding is going down
Yeah, we're fucked.
versus the last cohort. I think liquidity is more fragmented in the market right now. I think over time, probably the airdrop dollar is going to go down,
Yep.
because there's just not enough liquidity to essentially sustain the frequent asset issuance. That's especially for the airdrop dollar per project. But and in some way, I also think that the airdrop market is somewhat indirectly funded by VCs, because a lot of the protocols not necessarily have PMF at launch. So it's all based on the belief that in the future, because they have money at hand, that in the future they can build a viable business. Right? So that's the value that people subscribe. The market subscribe to each of the protocol at launch, which essentially supported the price at launch, which essentially benefits a lot of the airdrop recipients. I think that over time, probably that airdrop market is going to go down. At the same time, I think one market is going to go up is with the absence of, or with the decline of the VC funding market. Then I think community funding market is going to go up, because a lot of the projects will be thinking that with the same kind of a circulation that I have in mind, if I can't do kind of a lot of the airdrop, maybe I just do more community round. So essentially to decentralize my holding. So I think that's a big market that we kind of want to tap into. And the specific angle that we have is, I think up until this point, there's no mechanism that really very heavily leverages AI technology to really
Mm.
help with that distribution. One of the things that we did on Yapa Leaderboard is everything is basically algo driven. So in the past, it's all manual, and people always wanted to kind of reward very loyal community members, right? But then in the past, they couldn't do it because how would you even go about indexing all this data and then identifying the relevant people to incentivize and reward? The same thing actually goes to kind of the Capital Launchpad as well. If you think about community round, right now there's just not enough uh, data that's been properly indexed, um, provided by kind of the people who are able to do this,
Mm.
to essentially map out all the people who are relevant.
Yep.
Imagine that you're building a cross-chain protocol, then a lot of the times it's not really just about the dollar that you raise, it's actually about who you bring into the capital, cap table, and
Yep.
then be with you for the long period of time, and pre TG, post TG, continue to be supporting you, creating mindshare, generating content for you, using your product, stuff like that. And what we are specifically trying to provide is, with all the data that we have, if we are able to come up with a way to essentially use AI to identify all the most relevant people and also use algorithms to optimize the round, then that would be huge value add.
Mm.
And in terms of just optimizing the round, right? So you're thinking about a lot of different aspects to it. How do you even like historically people are all doing this on a manual basis. I think about
Yep.
how VC is structuring the round is all. I know these people, they're gonna be helpful.
Yep.
You should get them into the angel round, stuff like that. In the future, it can all be run by algorithm, because with algorithm you can identify, you can index the most comprehensive data, you can identify the most relevant people who are deeply aligned and deeply passionate about the stuff that you're doing, then the
Mm.
most relevant, and there's no bias in terms of who stuff like that, and you can be well balanced in terms of geographical coverage. You can be well balanced in terms of skill set coverage, all that kind of stuff. So
Mm.
that's really the stuff that we're trying to do.
That's pretty big, and I have so many follow-up questions, but this is for both pre-TGE private investments as well as post-TGE OTC rounds, or even just
I
placements.
think I think it can apply to both.
Initially,
And
what do you go to market with?
TBD how we gonna be doing
Okay.
this. We have a few projects in the pipeline in terms of the pre TG, and and also think that post TG could be a very big market as well, depending on how people are going about that.
Mm. And then the vesting and the custody is enforced by you, or do you work with any partners?
So we'll be working with other partners. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And then in terms of the flexibility, the flexibility of this product comes on like a couple sides.
Yep.
Immediately off of my mind is when you speak about relevancy. Its relevancy both to the core product that they're building, as well as the relevancy as defined by the founder. Like I might want to open up a round to people who invest in my competitors because, again, I want to have them talk about me.
Yep.
How flexible would that be? And then secondly, if it's privates, how flexible would it be to tie the vesting or any type of terms, allocation size, to
Yep.
the actual sort of yaps or contribution that
Yep.
they have?
Very, very flexible. You can basically
Mm.
structure however you want this to be, and you can also tap into both the social side as well as the on-chain side as well. So one of the benefits of Kaito being a platform that has both substantial amount of social information and the on-chain wallet connections and linking is we're able to have much more holistic user profiling data. If we want
Mm.
to be targeting traders in Korea that have used certain DEX protocols or all that kind of stuff, we can essentially target those people instantly.
Mm.
And so the amount of obviously, like in a bit, we can talk about kind of the earned product, but this is kind of the ultimate premise in terms of how the basically the algo driven user targeting can be so precise
Mm,
that with the distribution that we have, we can basically structure this in a most optimized way. So
mm,
in a nutshell, it can be very, very flexible. And at the same time, it can even introduce, because we have the analytics side of things, it can even introduce very, very interesting dynamics where you can have differentiation and uh, different terms for different people based on proof of work
yeah,
post round.
yeah,
So you can even structure something like everyone will be getting at certain valuation, but if you are willing to put in the work after
yes,
the round, then you essentially over time will essentially get more favorable terms, either
yeah,
additional bonus or a salaries investing, all that kind of stuff.
mm,
So a simple example could be if you
that's
come and
cool.
raise a Yapper round, and then every single Yapper can essentially come in at X dollar of value. Let's say, for example, 300 value, 300 FDV, 300 million FDV. But over time, if you are willing to put in the work and continue to be generating mindshare, yap about us, etc., and then based on your performance over a long period of time, then if you are basically ranked top 50 over a 1 year period, then basically your effective valuation can come down to 100 million,
Mm.
right? So
And,
then it solves a big issue in terms of
yep,
people basically in the same round, people are paying the same price, but then
yeah,
after the round, not necessarily everyone is contributing the same value
mm-hmm,
to the deal. So you can essentially have a whole new different mechanism with the analytics that we have.
mm. Um, that's very cool. And what's your take rate and how's traction with this so far when you talk to projects?
So so can't disclose that, but
Neither? Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay, fine.
but what I can say is I think will be a very big kind of a very big flagship product for us. Heading into basically Q2 and Q3.
Mm. And what's the pushback from teams that you talk to that it seems very enticing, right? And are they, if they're hesitant, are they like, oh, this is so new, we want to see somebody else do it first? Is it like what's the hesitation, if any?
Yeah. So interestingly, it's the other dynamics. It's the opposite of that. Basically, people are really keen to be number one launching with
Mm.
Kaito, because I
Mm.
think our brand positioning is Kaito's always doing something new in
Mm.
this space, and people want to be associated, want to be the first one doing with Kaito. It's the same as how we are doing the Kaito earn stuff. It's the same as when we kind of first launched the Yappa leaderboard. The first few projects are always getting outsized sort of attention and being kind of considered as the innovator in the space. So the same dynamics actually applies here. So we actually haven't been very vocal and public about this new product,
Mm.
but basically, we are in this market essentially. Have a very very deep relationship with pretty much every single pre-TG company that's launching in the space. So
Mm.
it's very much a lot of our clients are like, yes, we
Interesting.
want to do
So
this.
this is like a different echo, but it's like interesting and
Yeah,
the
it's
public
different.
market OTC would happen much later, it seems like.
Yeah. So I mean,
Okay.
it. So I do think there's different kind of differentiation and different dynamics, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And I think it's very much kind of just an extension of what we are already doing, and
Mm.
essentially offering a service to the project as an alternative in terms of how they can be thinking about various different ways, and eventually I think this is going to be very synergistic and complementary in because at the end of the day, when people are very very close to TGE,
Mm.
then why are people kind of raising a pre-TG round? There are only
Yeah.
mainly two purposes.
Yeah.
One is one is basically decentralizing ownership
Mm-hmm.
and getting the high quality people to be kind of in the cap table and be for the long run. And
Yeah.
the other one is also kind of just raising awareness, sort of using that as a marketing event as well,
Yeah.
which is, you know, um, which is very kind of adjacent to what we're doing in
Mm.
terms of like Yap leaderboards and stuff.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I wish you all the success. This seems like it's a big product. It, I
yeah,
mean, and I'm assuming it will be a tick rate based model for your revenue, like $10 million SaaS round, tick rate revenue. Is that
yeah.
okay?
So the way that we think about the fee model here is, let's say for example, if you want to raise 10 million, and then we want to have a kind of a new different fee model and a different mechanism for this to be interesting.
Mm.
So the way we think about this is, for example, X% of, let's say overall we take, the network would essentially take either, let's say, for as an example, we take 5%, and then maybe part of that is stable and part of that is in token. But
Mm.
instead of Kaito taking a token, we redistribute all the tokens to all our stakers. So the specific dynamics there is we can have like 10 different launchpad protocols that launch through us, and then they all have future tokens that they're gonna distribute to the network. But we don't take the tokens. We don't think about divesting the tokens, all that kind of stuff. We essentially reserve the tokens for all the Kaito token holders, and
Mm.
then they need to signal alignment with the project that they like, and then to be able to, in the future, get the tokens. So that becomes a dividend model effectively,
And well,
but
it's not dividend because they have to do something to get it,
they just stake.
but they have to signal alignment. They have to say
They have
something.
to stake, but they have to do. They don't have to do the work. Basically, they just park their Kaito to the specific project. So
Interesting.
it's
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, but that way,
Mm.
the reason why we want to do it that way is because we don't necessarily want to do the kind of the BNB model where
Mm.
every single kind of a BNB holder
Yeah.
is undifferentiated, and
Yeah.
you basically get tokens for every single project that's being
Yes.
launched. But
Yes.
actually, we want
Yes.
to force our token holders to signal alignment to any specific project, and then
Yes.
they become aligned with any specific project. And there's also kind of a very interesting market uh, efficiency angle there, which is also kind of how we're thinking about the whole InfoFi
Yeah.
narrative. So
Yeah.
we believe that token holder is going to be efficient in allocating their capital. So
Yeah.
as they basically allocate, they're also kind of constantly thinking about the future value of the tokens, etc., all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dynamic balance there.
Yes. And obviously, obviously that portion would be as the additional interest, and as Kaito is tradable, I'm guessing.
As Kaito is basically just a derivative of Kaito.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
it opens up yield up. It's interesting. Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then
Mm.
there's gonna be even more interesting dynamics there because we now have a Pendle pool, right? So
Yes,
for
exactly.
every S title, there's PT and YT.
And you just go
So
into pre-market. Would the trading be done at your platform or is it somewhere else?
no. So this is not pre-market, but essentially, if you have the YT token,
Yeah.
then the YT can essentially stake with all of these different launchpad products, which entitles you to get the future tokens.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it becomes the same playbook that back in for example Q1 2024, and then people are speculating on the future price of the token, and then
I
buy
get
the
that.
YT to essentially um,
I
get
get that.
exposure to the
Exactly.
token.
I mean, you stake Kaido, that's your PT, and then you get a YT when you stick with the project. Let's say you get
Yes.
S
Yep.
Kaito YT Mega ETH, but that's
Yes.
tradable, and you know exactly how much you're getting, kind of. And would that trading be done on your platform, or is it be done on Pendle or something?
I mean,
Because okay,
we can
okay,
essentially make a
yeah,
market for
yeah,
it as well.
interesting. Because then it backward implies, I mean,
Yep.
it's really illiquid, but it implies what valuation people think Mega ETH will trade at. Interesting.
Yep.
Um, it seems like you should make a lot of money out of this and kind of Ponzi's up the S Kaido thing. I think people who owns the S Kaido could be really happy.
And it's going to be
Tell
a
me
lot
more.
of speculation and basically should be people thinking about different valuation for different tokens,
That's cool.
how you
Yeah,
structure YT, PT, all this.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna get very,
and
very interesting.
and obviously the stake Kaido holders who are whales already would be pushing the projects that they invest in to like do a round on you
Yes,
because they cool.
and that becomes a kind of a flywheel as well because
Mm,
essentially by decentralizing the benefits and the fees, we create more stakeholders for each of the launchpad projects.
mm.
Then that becomes a very, very interesting dynamics there.
Yes, and investing there will be on the same level as the folks who invest based on their
Yeah,
Yapper point. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Um, Tell me more about the earn product.
yeah. I mean, so ultimately, the earn product is trying to solve the kind of the distribution problem that people are all having, and the way I think about the earn product is Yapper leaderboard is basically Yap to earn, but in crypto, there's so much more than just Yap to earn. There are for example, trading. There's for example referral. There's for example incentivize the usage. The basically kind of different categories of incentive or campaigns. So it's essentially going to be tapping into those, and by leveraging the distribution channel that we already have in two parts. One is we have for example, 200,000 monthly active yappers at the same time, a million kind of registered users on the platform. So we can directly reach out to every single user that's pretty much active in crypto today. But at the same time, we can also distribute through the yappers to essentially go to not just crypto Twitter, but all the other social media platforms as well. So, for example, if you want to target the Korean market, and not every single Korean is going to be looking at Twitter all day, but actually by targeting all the Korean yappers who all have some sort of Twitter presence, they can then redistribute through their Telegram channels to essentially get reach out to those users. So the underlying premise of the Kaito Earn product is to solve the distribution problem because people can't use very specific digital ads or any sort of targeting, and that's where every single product or sub-product is currently kind of struggling with. They don't know how to effectively spend their incentive dollar,
Hmm.
and
I,
they don't
I'm
have a very yeah. Go
maybe
ahead.
to make it clear because I'm a little confused. Like, um, if I'm a yapper today, right? I
Yep.
shill on Twitter and I use TikTok, I use Telegram, I use all these social products, and then I want to get paid through Mega ETH through Yapper Earn. Like, walk me through the flow of how I get paid. Like,
Yeah.
let's say TG or TikTok or something.
Yeah. So for example, we can through the platform we can distribute a referral code,
Hmm.
and you basically get the referral code that's personalized to you,
Yeah.
and then you can redistribute this referral code to all the other people that sign up through you. So we
Mm.
can track specifically all these people are kind of onboarding through you specifically, and as platform we can basically design different campaigns, and that's kind of a refer to earn, right? So for example, for trade to earn, it can be very simple. We can be working with whatever wallet providers, whatever exchanges, whatever up and coming, DEX competitors, pub, competitors and stuff. We
Yeah.
can be either the first degree distributor in
Mm.
terms of directly distributing to the users, or we can be the second degree um, distributor in terms of we distribute to the KOLs or the
I
yappers,
see.
and the
I
KOLs
see.
will then distribute to all the other people, and then the platform can take basically a success fee or referral fee or whatever,
Yes.
and then again we can have the same interesting dynamics where whatever the fees that the platform is making can essentially redistribute to the stakers who are believing or have vested interest in a particular campaign.
I see. So, for example, if you work with Binance, I mean, Binance gives you a huge ref link. I mean, everybody can
Yep.
refer already, and
Yep.
then that basically goes to all the yappers. They all of a sudden have a quest like a ref link of their own. It's like sign up to Binance and trade. and then Binance
Yep.
see revenue go up, they basically pay you the fees, and then you pay the fees to the yappers that distribute it based on their ref code. And you
Yep.
take a small slice in between, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and typically it's always kind of the up and coming competitors that's trying to grab market share.
Yep.
There's but the basically a ton of it. I think the specific edges that we have is one is on distribution because we're one of the very, very few platforms that have the highest quality of users.
Mm.
Think about every single. It's not just kind of a KOLs and not just build kind of a users. We have all the builders. We have the core of the CT, and the entire basically the kind of highest quality people in crypto are basically our registered users. So the average you know dollar value of a user that you can reach out to is very, very high here.
Mm.
And
And the earn feature basically is tied to the SaaS service you already sell to these businesses. They already have a budget with you, and you're like, hey, you want to try this earn product?
yes,
Is that how you sell?
and
Okay.
also the Yap leaderboard
Mm.
clients.
Got it.
So and
Mm.
they can combine the two things together as well. So for example, if you are already setting aside, let's say 50 basis point of the token for Yappa campaign, you can essentially pair that up with a referral
Mm.
campaign, right?
That's
So
very cool.
all of a sudden, it's not just you're not just incentivizing people to be yapping about you, but actually with a very, very clear call to action, which is
Yeah.
yap about
Sign up
me,
for.
but also send his referral, get as many people on board as possible.
Mm.
And that becomes a much more holistic
Mm.
PPM campaign that we can do.
Would the users, because it seems like you are not only profiling projects, but you're kind of also profiling users. Like as a yapper on your platform starts contributing,
Yep.
naturally they'll have more affiliation with some projects over the other. Would there be at some point that the yappers will have individual project-based sort of, I wouldn't call it ranks, but just like affiliation or loyalty points, kind of something like that, associated with single projects?
Well, I mean, they already have in a way that because we have like all these Yap
Mm.
leaderboards and they would
Yeah.
appear on
Mm.
certain Yap leaderboards but not on others. So
Mm.
there's actually a ton of information that we have in terms of what are some of the a typical projects that they will be interested in, typical narrative that they will be interested in.
Yeah.
So and we also have like people's on-chain behaviors and stuff like that. So
Mm.
it's really kind of a holistic user
Mm.
profile, Yappa profiling that we have.
That's
And
cool.
and I think by the time that this gets published, we already would have launched our um, feeds feature on the platform as well. Because
Oh, cool.
at the end of
Mm.
the day, Kaito is, you know, information product as well. So we want people to be going through the feeds on Kaito across like different social media or all that kind of stuff, everything related to crypto, and we will essentially have personalized feeds for everyone, stuff like that. And in the future, we're also going to be having a mobile version, so iOS, for example, which we already have on the institutional side, on the pro
Yep.
side. So we're going
Yeah.
to be launching on the retail side. So in the future, everyone's going to get personalized notification in terms of, hey, what are some of the deals that's going to be interesting to you?
Mm.
This kind to earn product can be a very good opportunity because you were trading hyperliquid back in the day, and
Mm.
this thing is very much up and coming, versus that.
Mm. Makes sense. That's cool. So we talked about two things. There's a third thing. Info as an asset. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So information as an asset is basically the underlying premise of InfoFi is that information can be priced and traded as well.
Mm.
And so we had a first partnership with Noise. So they're building on Mega ETH, and they essentially allow people to be trading, narrative, trading pre-TG mindshare, all that kind of stuff, right? So
Mm.
historically, uh, in terms of a pre-TG mindshare, the rationale is simple. So currently, if you want a long Mega ETH, there's no way that you can do it. if you want to have a view on certain stuff, there's no way you can do it until the point that they basically get listed on some sort of pre-market, which is just a few days before the trading.
Sure.
But that becomes a vehicle where people can essentially express certain views. The same thing actually goes to kind of a narrative with an even, like in my view, with an even stronger proposition that. So like back in the day, everyone wanted to launch AI narrative. For example, I think about Q4 last year, but majority of the people got burned very badly because you basically just pick the wrong asset.
Yeah, the coins are shit too. But anyways.
Yeah, but imagine that you can actually launch different narratives, which is the easiest thing for people to understand. Like if I just want to long stablecoin mindshare, stuff like that, I can basically just trade that, which is a mega trend that's also being manifested in traditional finance as well. For example, Fidelity will be coming up with a basket of tokens, oh, not tokens, but obviously equities,
Yeah.
because people realize that nobody wants to do due diligence on Nvidia. People just want to trade what they understand. They want to trade trends, all this kind of stuff. And so we're going to start with all of these, but then in the future, a lot of the stuff can be tradable, and you can be expressing your view on the popularity of a singer. They could be, different trends they can be trading and all that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, it creates a whole new market that allows people to express their views.
Interesting. I'm guessing that product would be using your mindshare index as the underlying, and that oracle basically tallies the P&L of this perp platform.
Yep.
Whereby there will be an LP pool that takes the counteracting side of whatever longs and shorts of the perp position people take, and then the deviation of the perp price will be the funding they pay. Is that roughly the right way to think about it?
Yeah, is that's roughly, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean,
There are obviously different ways. Different ways. And if I think about the poly market model, is they allow people to bet on stuff that will eventually have a definitive outcome. Right? Either it be like elections and sports events, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the stuff doesn't really have a definitive outcome.
No.
Like for example, if you're betting on whether certain singer is going to be very popular in the future, how do you even go about quantifying that?
Yeah.
Right. But leveraging the information markets, you can actually basically index all the social media content. Then that becomes the source of truth in terms of whether that the mindshare becomes the source of truth in terms of the popularity of that particular singer. And also at the same time, the interesting factor there is when people are trading Bitcoin, people are really just trading narrative and the popularity of certain topics. But the issue with a lot of the Bitcoin was there is just so many idiosyncratic token distribution and some of the other stuff that's in that. There's a lot of kind of insider allocations and stuff that's just non-transparent. But if you're thinking about from a information market perspective, because everyone is effectively an insider, that makes nobody an insider, because people collectively form the market.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting effort. I'll be really curious to how it's, because right off the bat I can think of three problems. The mindshare are mean reverting, because anything gets hyped die down over time. The yappers themselves can manifest the reality by just like tweeting, so they can kind of almost manipulate the market. And then the ultimate LP pool will run into this like insider, like toxic flow situation where I'm gonna bet size, of course, because I'm the project founder. That's gonna cost this wave of mindshare. Would you rank this as like the most excited effort that you have out of the three, or is this like we're experimenting kind of thing?
I think it will be so maybe let me answer the questions first.
Yeah, please.
Talk about my view. So first things first is depend like the manipulation, the degree to which that certain things can be manipulated, really depends on the market itself. So, if theoretically, if we're indexing every single social media in terms of the popularity of a singer, then effectively, because the market is so big, none of the guys will have an outsized impact in terms of determining that,
Fair
unless you
enough.
basically bribe the entire market.
Hmm.
Then obviously everything eventually is subject to manipulation. But if the cost of manipulation is too high, then basically
Mm.
it wouldn't be viable. And so that will be kind of you know the way to go about it. But obviously, like different markets will have different dynamics there.
Yeah.
What's the other one? What's the other one that you mentioned?
Yeah, I thought that you would get toxic flows. Like if I'm long
Oh,
AI and I'm yeah.
because of mean reversion.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way that people can argue meme coins that have mean reversion as well, because everything's gonna
That's right.
go to zero eventually.
Yeah, I could see
Um,
that. I could see
yeah.
that.
So I mean, there's I don't think there's any difference.
Yeah. If you were to rank the three efforts, before I go there, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that outside of the three that like, man, this is going to really jumpstart revenue for us off this current level?
It's the possibility of going much beyond crypto.
Mm.
Because I don't know, we probably talked about this last year.
Mm.
One of the grand visions of what Kaito really tries to build is something that indexes every single social media in the world. The specific problem that I see in the space or in today's world is a traditional search engine is becoming less and less impactful because Google nowadays, so for example, you will be saying that you use a Grok, for example, a lot, right? Because a lot of the useful information is on social media. It's very different from even just 5 years ago. But at the same time, every single social media is an isolated platform. Twitter doesn't want other people to be indexing the data. Instagram doesn't want that, all that kind of stuff. The specific problem they're trying to solve and the grand vision or the kind of the long-term vision that we have um, for the whole InfoFi economy is we believe that the only way to break that barrier to essentially index the whole, people call it the walled garden for the whole internet is incentivizing users directly.
Yep.
People getting paid
Yep.
so that they will share their data with you.
Yep.
And then you don't do that by just indexing their data and then just give them money. To be able to have a sustainable business model, all of the stuff that you take from them needs to be generating revenue and generating sustainable business model as well, which is
Mm-hmm.
effectively what we have experimented in crypto Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So we're incentivizing everyone to be sharing their data with us, but we create a whole new economy to have all the yappers to be, uh, constantly being paid.
Yep.
We created this whole new economy that's much more efficient than some of the old alternatives that existed in the market. And imagine that we bring this beyond Twitter, and then this because we used the kind of the probe before. You know that we already index a ton of other social media platforms and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. From
Yeah.
a technology perspective, we can do it.
Mm.
Then, if we were able to do this first within crypto across TikTok, so many projects want to be incentivizing yappers on TikTok to essentially
Mm-hmm.
branch out. We can do this on Instagram. It's going to be relevant for a lot of the specific brands within crypto as well. YouTube, all this kind of stuff. Telegram, Line,
Yeah.
there's different kind of social media, stuff like that. And then ultimately bring this beyond crypto as well.
Mm.
Because if it works in a specific vertical, it should also work in other verticals. And
Obviously.
imagine ultimately if we have basically information and data from every single social media platform would
Mm.
essentially we can also incentivize people to be linking their identities and all this kind of stuff because today, none of the tech platforms is going to be talking to each other. Like, TikTok is never going to be talking to Twitter. They're never going to be sharing any of the data together. But if we as a third-party platform can actually incentivize all the users to be linking their identities together, then we can be the best platform for any brands and marketing activities to be basically routing through us. And then we can control where it is kind of the most optimized distribution for all these economic activities to be happening.
Yeah. I guess the question, there are two steps to it. One is sort of real world businesses through you, like paying influencers, shilling them. And then the step before that is crypto entities paying through you to any user on any platform, paying them.
Yeah.
How soon would, Bera be able to pay TikTok influencers and Instagram?
Yep.
And then secondly is, I'm guessing you already solved the sort of, you can already know what kind of video they post, because the relevancy of that content is obviously relevant to kind of what they want. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the crypto adoption in various different social media, that will be pretty soon.
How soon?
I can tell you it'll be in Q3. Sorry, in Q2. So it'll be this quarter. Yeah.
Imminent. Great. Okay.
Yeah, very, very imminent. Because at the end of the day, we already index majority of the platforms. Like, we already index YouTube, we already index Telegram, we already index Discord, all this kind of stuff. But the next one we're going to be launching is going to be TikTok. So we're going to have TikTok leaderboard, stuff like that. And then even if today, for example, if I asked you, who's the biggest TikTok crypto influencer? Nobody has any idea even. Nobody knows where to even start. Which was the case before we launched all these city leaderboard, community leaderboard, all that kind of stuff. Because people have a rough idea in terms of the very top of the market, but then the long tail, people just have complete no idea. And that is where indexing and AI comes in. We can essentially create public leaderboard, evaluate people's influence, effectiveness, all that kind of stuff.
And obviously the sort of video and analysis that you will do through the AI would be able to. Okay, that's cool. Honestly, dude, I think that along. If I'm not mistaken, just to summarize, the Capital Launchpad and this effort that goes beyond just Twitter, Earn seems to be a really good feature add to the existing list of products. And then the mindshare trading, we'll see if it works. It seems like it's early, but those two that I mentioned seems to be the biggest revenue driver for you in the next 6 months. Okay.
I think the information as an asset, which is the kind of the mindshare market stuff, is going to be a wildcat. If it works, then it's going to be very big, because trading is going to be obviously huge revenue dollar, and but TBD if that works. But effectively, even if you look at fantasy talk, right, that's effectively trading influence, and there are people who are basically betting big on certain stuff. So and I think that meme coin trading is effectively kind of there's different kind of a mechanism that we can tap into it as well. Like, even just, for example, having I don't know whether we're gonna do it, but if we have a different way of doing the initial distribution for the meme coin launch, stuff like that, there are a lot of the potential possibilities there as well.
Can you go a few minutes over, because there are some really important. Okay, great. Of all of these efforts, including the sort of 10 million from research ARR and API plus 20 million from the existing sort of the platform, of all of these new efforts also as they funnel through your revenue, which part of it goes to the token and which part of it goes to the equity?
Yeah, so the way that we think about everything now is all holistic. So basically, to think about the whole revenue stuff that we're generating and then routing everything through token buyback.
Okay. And that's discretionary. You have done 14 million annualized so far?
40 million annualized so far, and recently we are accelerating. Yeah.
Okay. And it's purely discretionary, I'm guessing.
Purely discretionary, but at the same time, there is a basically an ongoing commitment in terms of we'll basically be doing this on a daily basis.
Okay, good to know. And then what other token sinks are there? Aside from I can stake my Kaido.
So the way we think about alignment and the network uh, value distribution is in two forms. One is token buyback, which is effectively redistributing value to everyone who's kind of holding Kaito token.
Yeah.
The other part is through sort of drops, right? So the stuff that we talked about in terms of Kaito earn, in terms of capital launchpad, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's effectively creating additional values to the token holders, which no one is talking about today because obviously haven't been launched. We haven't talked much about that, but effectively, that's also going to come as well. So if I think about the return of holding Kaito token today, obviously one thing, there is a staking yield, which is roughly 16% today. And the biggest difference of, I would say, this staking yield versus all the other, the majority of the other kind of staking programs in the market right now is none of the team and investor tokens are able to participate, which is none of the basic unvested tokens are able to basically put in there. And B is the entirety of the staking rewards are basically funded through the buyback program. So in a way that this is not inflationary, this is just disproportionately rewarding the stakers. And so that's completely sustainable. And if you look at the entire issuance of the token, the whole network is also in a net sync stage because currently we're obviously using a ton of revenue to be acquiring Kaito tokens in the open market. So people don't run into the issue of if I stake here, I get constantly diluted because the network is issuing 10% inflation on an annual basis at the same time as all the other stuff going on. So it's actually additive in terms of the return. So you'll be thinking about, if you're a staker, you'll be thinking about 16% in terms of the the staking reward. Plus, at this rate, we're talking about 3 to 4% of the entire, for example, token supply sync. And this is not just calculating the circulating. This is kind of the entire token supply in terms of the annual sync. But obviously, in terms of circulating, it will be a much bigger number, and then that kind of should be added towards the return that people should be thinking about by holding Kaito, by staking Kaito. Then that comes the added benefit of any whatever drops and dividends that people we're doing for the network. So
and the relationship, I'm guessing Yaps turns into tokens in the future. What about the NFT holders?
Yaps has already turned into tokens, basically.
Okay. So the Yaps are just mindshare, effectively.
Yaps effectively token as influence in the network. You are able to directly monetize by signaling influence, like getting deals and having some sort of mechanism that we haven't announced in terms of getting direct benefits in the ecosystem. So it's almost like if you are a big influencer on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, this is just a better signal in terms of your follower and kind of influence.
I see. That won't be tradable. That won't be tradable
because it shouldn't be. And it's just like Facebook did an airdrop to all the content creators in the early days.
Makes sense. And then the NFTs, how does that tie to all the value creation?
So the way we think about kind of the two assets are Kaito's gonna the token is gonna represent the ownership of the network, and sort of so over time it will be kind of decentralized. And then the NFT is basically it's kind of a representation of the community.
Mm.
So we want more people to be holding the NFT, which is the reason why we kind of introduce a new mechanism where the NFT becomes a multiplier for whatever the benefits that you can get. So
Understood.
the ideal state
Mm.
is, as token holders or Kaito token holders essentially want at least one Genesis NFT, and then all the Yappers will also want at least one Genesis NFT, so that
Mm.
everyone essentially gets a multiplier in whatever
Mm.
the stuff that they do in the whole InfoFight network
Got
that
it.
we're
Okay.
building.
And then the marginal benefits of stacking decreases as the more NT you own.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Last question I have. I've taken plenty of your time. Uh, I guess we talked about all these growth efforts, right? Some of them are more exciting than the others. I wouldn't ask you for your guidance, but like of the 33 million annualized today, looking into year end 2025, is there a level of annualized revenue or annualized burn or whatever KPI you track would make you happy?
Yeah. I mean, so one thing that I've said publicly or I've done publicly is I basically acquired a million Kaito tokens in the open market and then put them on the self-imposed lock. And then within that lock, I put two milestones publicly. One is a 50 million target, and then the other one is a 100 million target. And I put those targets,
Annualized revenue target.
annualized revenues target, yeah.
Mm.
And so clearly we're thinking it is possible and it's achievable for the network to essentially get 100 million. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm just burning my tokens effectively.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
benefit to
kind
all of
of
us.
yeah. So that's that's basic. I wouldn't put a kind of a time lock on that, but essentially that's what we're working towards. And I think
Mm.
that if we're successful on basically everything that we set out to do, it should be much bigger than 100 million.
Mm. Very cool. Members, do you have any questions? Let's give you 3 seconds. Really appreciate your time, man. We haven't done it in English in the past, but this is fun. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Appreciate the grilling.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody will appreciate it.